World War II was chock full of crazy happenings, some grim, others kind of hilarious. Naturally, we've covered some pretty crazy stories in the past, but we've always worked within some sort of theme or boundary. In this video, we say to hell with boundaries and present you with a lolly bag of crazy, sad, and straight up weird stories from the Second World War. The Allies subjected Berlin to over 360 air raids throughout the Second World War, with the British alone dropping more than 45,000 tons of bombs. The Royal Air Force's first raid on the German capital took place on the 25th of August 1940 and wasn't all that successful in terms of military gain. What the RAF did manage to destroy was, unfortunately, one of the elephants in the Berlin Zoo. This poor creature obviously didn't deserve this. But the carnage didn't end there. The Allies laid waste to the city all the way through till April 1945, and throughout this time, Berlin Zoo copped it hard. On the 22nd of November 1943, the RAF dumped over 1,000 incendiaries on the zoo, burning a third of its caged inhabitants alive. The next night, they came back and did it again, causing the aquarium to rupture and spew sea life throughout the streets. All in all, 8 of the zoo's 9 elephants were killed, and the one surviving elephant suffered from PTSD until he died in 1947. Some Berliners even butchered and ate the dead zoo animals. In the words of the zoo's director, "We had meat coming out of our ears, particularly tasty were the crocodile's tails. Later on, bear ham and bear sausage were a delicacy." The Germans straight up annihilated the Soviets at the Battle of Bialystok-Minsk, inflicting some 420,000 casualties in exchange for just 12,000. As much as 85% of Minsk's buildings were turned to dust too. One Soviet tank crew managed to inflict some disproportionate hurt though. Fleeing the doomed city in late June 1941, a T-28 tank driven by one Dmitry Malko was hit by a bomb and incapacitated. Instead of ditching the tank, Malko stayed behind to fix it. With the job done, he tried to catch up with his column, but couldn't. Instead, he met some other soldiers on the road and convinced them to get in. The T-28 fully manned, one thing led to another, and they found themselves in the middle of a vast German encirclement. Rather than trying to rejoin their comrades, they went straight back into Minsk. Malko knew the city and believed he could find a way through. Entering it, things went to hell for the Germans. The T-28 ran down a German cyclist, then opened fire on a group of unsuspecting German soldiers who likely believed the tank was one of the many the Soviets had abandoned. Why else would it be there? The T-28 then drove through a column of German motorcyclists and mopped up the stunned survivors with its guns. After getting into a few more one-sided scraps, the T-28 tried to gun it toward the Moscow highway. On the way, the tank took a crippling hit and caught fire. Some of the crew were killed and some managed to climb out and escape. Our boy Malko was among the latter. We probably don't need to tell you that Auschwitz concentration camp was hell on earth. It wasn't without a few sparks of compassion and hope though. One of those sparks was a Polish woman by the name of Stanislawa Leszczyńska, who was transported to the concentration camp with her daughter in April 1943. Stanislawa was a midwife and her daughter a medical student. Throughout her time in the women's camp, with a little help from her daughter, Stanislawa delivered as many as 3,000 newborns in utterly atrocious conditions. In Stanislava's words, the fate of the women in labor was tragic and the role of the midwife extremely difficult. There were no antiseptics, no dressings, and no medicine other than a small quota of aspirin. While she may have been able to alleviate the mother's suffering, very few of their babies survived the camp. Around 1,000 died of hunger and exposure, while the camp's resident Nazi Schwesters, meaning sisters, drowned a further 1,500 in barrels of water. The babies with blue eyes were a little luckier, with many of them being sent away for Germanization. Stanislava continued delivering babies in Auschwitz until the camp was liberated in early 1945. Homing pigeons saw extensive use throughout World War II, with 32 British pigeons earning the Dickon Medal for their bravery. One of such pigeons was Winkie. In February 1942, a Bristol Beaufort bomber of the Royal Air Force got struck by enemy fire on a return flight from Norway. The bomber smashed into the sea some 160 kilometers or 100 miles away from its destination. The crew, clambering through the sinking wreckage, ice-cold water stealing the heat from their very souls, didn't know exactly where they were and thus couldn't really radio to be picked up. But our girl Winkie had been on board this flight and had survived the crash. They released her without a message, and the pigeon began the 193 kilometer or 120 mile journey to the UK. When she arrived, RAF Command was able to calculate the position of the bomber based on Winkie's travel time and some other factors like wind. The crew were rescued and a dinner was held in the pigeon's honor. While the details of this next one are a little hairy, the result was around about the same. In April 1943, the Fletcher-class destroyer USS O'Bannon was cutting through the night in the South Pacific when her crew saw the Japanese Kaiju-type submarine RO-34 surface ahead of them. They decided to ram the sub, heading balls to the wall straight toward it. Only when they got a little closer, they freaked out, believing the sub could easily be a mine layer. Closing fast, they only had so much space to change their course and ended up right beside the enemy submarine. At this range, RO-34 could have fired on O'Bannon, but the destroyer was too close to line up a clear shot. Legend has it that, thinking on their toes, O'Bannon's crew woke up and started throwing potatoes at the Japanese sailors atop the submarine. It was now their turn to freak out, mistaking the potatoes for grenades. As such, they started lobbing them back at the American destroyer while it used the opportunity to gain some distance and then open fire. As the sub dived, O'Bannon positioned itself on top of it and loosed some depth charges, ripping RO-34 apart. While all this sounds great, the destroyer's commander, who was named Donald MacDonald mind you, claimed they were merely close enough to throw potatoes, not that they actually did. One especially weird story took place in the Institute for Study of Typhus and Virology in Nazi-occupied Poland. Here, Polish academics and intellectuals volunteered to strap cages of typhus-carrying lice to their bodies so the tiny horrors could feast on their blood, which was then used to produce vaccines for German soldiers on the front lines. In exchange, the volunteers were given additional rations and were able to avoid being sent to concentration camps. These people were known as Louse-feeders. The guy who was running the whole project was Polish himself, a parasitologist by the name of Rudolf Weigel. He managed to save quite a few Poles from the horrors of the Reich in this manner, including some members of the Polish resistance organization, the Home Army, and even some Jews. All in all, some 4,000 individuals spent at least some time working under Weigel in the Institute. He even helped smuggle typhus vaccines into the disease-ridden ghettos and concentration camps, earning himself legendary status among the people. We all know that Adolf Hitler was on drugs, but there's a side story that not everyone's aware of. According to the book Fascinating Footnotes from History by Giles Milton, Hitler had long suffered from stomach cramps, diarrhea, and such chronic flatulence that he had to leave the table after each meal in order to expel vast quantities of wind. To reiterate, der Führer had gas. This was mostly because of the ridiculous amounts of vegetables he ate after giving up on sweet meat. His personal physician, Theodor Morel, who jacked Hitler up with an almost lethal cocktail of drugs on a daily basis, made the following observation of the Führer's bowels. Constipations and colossal flatulence occurred on a scale I have seldom encountered before. To combat this, he prescribed Hitler some anti-gas pills that contained the molecule strychnine. Hitler took 16 of these pills a day, which provided him at least some relief, but also turned his skin yellow and caused him to suffer lapses in attention. That certainly explains a thing or two. Hitler's bowel movements aside, we're interested to know what you think. Had you heard about any of these crazy, sad, weird stories before? Would you like to see a second part to the video? If so, can you think of any stories we should include, bearing in mind we're trying to stick with the lesser known ones? Please let us know all that and more in the comments section below, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new.